Hi everybody, this is M.Boll with our next Year 6 lesson on volcanoes and earthquakes. Last week we found out all about earthquakes, and this week we're concentrating on volcanoes. In today's lesson we're going to look at why do volcanoes erupt. We're looking at why, then we're going to look at what happens when they do erupt. We're going to make sure that we're comfortable with all the keywords that we need to use for this unit, and the tasks that you're going to do later. One, you're going to explain why volcanoes erupt, to write a paragraph explaining that once you've watched the video. Secondly, you're going to label a diagram that I'm going to show you, and it'll be on our Teams. And thirdly, you're going to actually have a go at a crossword. Now first we're going to have a look at this introductory video from the National Geographic, and got it ready here.
They burn. Bottomless cauldrons fueled by an ancient wrath, bubbling and boiling thousands of miles beneath the surface and just waiting to burst through. Volcanoes are scattered across the planet. About 1,500 active volcanoes can be found across the world, though countless others are on the ocean floor. Most volcanoes, whether on land or underwater, are located where tectonic plates meet. In fact, the Ring of Fire, a path that traces the boundaries between several tectonic plates around the Pacific Ocean, contains about 75% of the planet's volcanoes.
Okay, which brings us to the tectonic plates. So now I think we're getting quite familiar with how the tectonic plates work. So if we just move on through, here we go. Here's a reminder of all the different tectonic plates that there are in the world, and here is the area that we're concentrating on, which, as you know, is called the Ring of Fire, all around the edge of the Pacific. And as the video has just reminded you, 75% of all the world's volcanoes occur in that area. Of course, we're lucky we don't get volcanoes in Britain. We used to have, and some British mountains were formed by volcanoes, but that was thousands and thousands of years ago. So this is just a reminder, the tectonic plates can meet in three ways. The first way, which we discussed in the second lesson, is that they pull apart, and that we call that divergent movement. And just to prove you've been listening, you call out or tell your little brother the other two. Off you go. Well done, I expect you got that. They are convergent movement and transform. Now when the plates pull apart, this can cause volcanoes, and here's an example on this map of Iceland, which, remember, is the country, not the supermarket. As the tectonic plates pull apart, there's lots and lots of volcanoes on Iceland. In fact, it's a great place to visit to see them. Convergent movement, we're going to talk more about this today. Convergent movements, when the tectonic plates push together, they can cause mountains, as we discussed before, when you have two continental plates pushing together. That is two plates which are based on land. And the example we talked about was when the Indian plate pushes into the Eurasian plate, which has formed the Himalayan mountains. But today we're going to talk a bit more about what happens when an oceanic plate is converging with a continental plate. And the third type of movement, which I'm sure you got right, is transform movement, and we discussed that last week, and that is more concerned with earthquakes. So we're looking today at divergent movement and at convergent movement. Now, when an oceanic plate meets a continental plate, here's the diagram I want you to see. As they meet, the oceanic plate is forced underneath. This can take many, many years, obviously, but it goes on all the time. And when the oceanic plate is forced underneath, all the liquid has been absorbed into the crust of the Earth. Lots and lots of water has been absorbed in there. And when it gets down here into the hot rock, which we know as the mantle, then lots and lots of pressure builds up. And as the pressure builds up, gases are formed, and they find it very difficult to escape. And this can form up here, as you can see. The magma will push its way up, and pressure is created, which eventually can burst out onto the surface through in the form of a volcano. And you tend to get this, what they call a volcanic arc, when the oceanic plate is forced under the continental plate. And there's exactly this type of arc in the United States, where the Pacific plate has been forced under the North American plate. And you get a series of mountains there called the Cascade Mountains. Now I'm just going to have a look to help us understand this at a brief bit of a video which was on Newsround, which is just here.
Volcanoes erupt when molten rock called magma rises to the surface. Magma is formed when the Earth's mantle melts. Melting may happen where tectonic plates are pulling apart, or where one plate is pushed down under another. Magma is lighter than rock, so rises towards the Earth's surface. Sometimes if magma rises quickly, or if the magma is thick, like toothpaste, gas cannot easily escape. Runny magma erupts through openings or vents in the Earth's crust before flowing onto its surface as lava. When the pressure is too much, an explosive eruption can happen, which can be dangerous and disruptive.
Here we go. So these are then the presenter there used nearly all of the keywords that we need to learn for this lesson. So let's just run over that again. The oceanic crust goes underneath. It's forced under by the continental crust, and when this happens, it starts to melt. It releases lots and lots of gases. They can't easily escape because what's above it is rock, and this builds up pressure, which eventually can lead to volcanoes. Now, to help us with today's lesson, we need to understand that there are three types of volcano. Here's a picture of the three types. See if you could call out what you think are the words that we use to describe these three types of volcano. Off you go. Right, well, I expect you got the first one, because the first one on the left here, this one is erupting at the moment, and so we call that an active volcano. Now this one, as you can see, it's not erupting at the moment, but because there's some obviously some smoke escaping, it's not safe to suddenly think, oh, that'll be fine, I'm going to build a house right here, right next to the volcano. That might not be such a great plan. So this one is, we call it, it's like being asleep. So the word we use for this type of volcano is dormant. Okay, and the final type of volcano here on the right hand side of your screen, that one won't ever erupt again because there isn't magma underneath it anymore. So it is safe to go there, and it probably just looks like a mountain. And that one we call extinct. So the keywords you need to learn is active, dormant, extinct. Here are some examples. See if you can say which is which. Okay, well, I'm sure you got this one. This is the active one. This is happening right now on the island of Hawaii, which is a volcanic island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and is part of the United States. And a bit like Iceland, which we discussed before, the position that it's in means that they have lots and lots of volcanoes. And so here, this is the mountain Kilauea, I hope I pronounced that properly, and that is erupting right now. So that is active. This is the dormant one, which is a very famous mountain in Japan. It's the biggest mountain. It's called Mount Fuji. And this one's actually in Ireland, so it's really close to us, and it's called Mount Slemish, and it's extinct. It's not going to erupt again in the future. Right, now here's a diagram, and I want you to get familiar with this diagram and how it works and learn the key words that are on here. So most of them are things we've already discussed, like for example, here's the mantle, which as you know is the hot rock that's under the earth. And this can build up into a magma chamber, which is just down here. Then we've got the oceanic crust, okay, being forced underneath the continental crust. So here's the land. So that, imagine that's like the United States, and here's the Pacific Ocean. This is exactly what's happening there, and this oceanic crust is being forced under. Now here's another phrase we need to use. When the oceanic crust is forced underneath, we call this the subduction zone. So sub is a prefix you've met many times, so I'm sure you know words like submarine. So use that to help you remember that this is the bit that goes underneath. Then the magma can build up, then you can get a vent. So here there's a little weakness in the Earth's crust, and there's so much pressure coming from underneath, with the rock down there being so hot, as we discussed in lesson 1, that this is forced up, and it can be quite explosive. If the magma is sticky, this pressure builds up even more and you get these volcanic bombs. So bits of rock are then thrown out quite long distances. Then you get a massive cloud of ash, and even if you don't live nearby, this could then settle onto where you live, or it could block what you're doing. And in one big volcano, in 1815, it blocked out the summer. And even though the earthquake happened in the southern hemisphere, not up here where we live, there was no summer. It basically was dark. So that's imagine the strength of that volcano. Down here, this is the ash and the lava flowing down the mountain. It can flow up to 100 miles an hour. It'll burn and destroy anything in its path, trees, creatures, humans if they were silly enough to be there, houses, whatever is in its path will be destroyed. Okay, of course it's not all bad. When this lava then cools later, years later, the minerals that are brought up can provide nutrients, and so it can actually be a very good area for farming near a volcano, but obviously it's also got a risk attached to living there. Now on this version of the diagram, as you can see, I've blocked out all the labels, and so you're going to have this on your assignment on Teams, and you're going to type in all the labels, and that's what you're going to send to me. So I expect you can do most of them without checking, but obviously if you did need to check, you would just go back to the video and find the right place. Okay, but the first time you do it, just see if you can do it without checking. Test yourself. So after you've done the diagram, you're on to task 2. So task 1, label the diagram. Task 2, you're going to write a paragraph to explain why volcanoes erupt. These are the keywords that you need to use: oceanic plate, continental plate, subduction zone, pressure, magma, eruption, lava, ash cloud, volcanic bombs. If you can't remember what any of those are, just go back to the diagram because they're all on there. And here's an example. This is how you could start your paragraph, so you can borrow my starter sentence here if you want to, and then just carry on with the rest of your paragraph afterwards. Volcanoes usually erupt where two tectonic plates meet. If one is a continental plate and one is an oceanic plate, the oceanic plate will be forced underneath. Right, so that's task 2. Finish that paragraph and then send that to me. And task 3, you're going to have a go at this crossword. Now, crosswords are great, and my mum does a crossword every single day, and she's 86, and it helps to keep her mind active. And you may, if you talk to your nan and granddad, you'll probably find that's the sort of thing they do as well. And on here, there's a series of clues, and the way you do a crossword is you look at the number. So 4 across, here's the clue: molten rock inside the earth. And then you look where 4 is, and then you have to count the spaces that are available. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 letters in that word. So what is a word for molten rock inside the earth? And then you put that word in there. Okay. Now I'm going to do one of the clues for you, just so you can see how it works. And the one I'm doing for you is number 10 down. This is the name of a volcano that destroyed Pompeii, the city in Italy, in AD 79. Very famous, and I think you looked at it when you were younger in year 3. So if you call out the answer, so I think that lots of you will have got that. It's Mount Vesuvius. And so we're going to put that clue in there. And as you can see, the good thing about the crossword is once you've got one of the clues, that then gives you a letter. So now we've got the first letter of number 12, 12 across, because we know it's E, because we put Vesuvius in the right place. So I want you to work out this crossword, put all the right words in the right places and send it to me. And if you were stuck on this crossword, there's another bit of this video coming up which gives you a few more clues, but I recommend you have a go first. To stop this video, pause it, have a go at the crossword, and only look at the last minute or so if you really need help. So stop it if you're going to have a go without the help, challenge yourself to have a go, and then if you get stuck, we're going to move on. Here's some letters, first letters of these words here. So 1 down begins with A, 7 across begins with D, 6 down begins with C, and 4 across begins with M. Okay, and I'm going to put the first letters in for all the other words now, so look away if you don't want to know. There we go. Right, good luck with that. I look forward to seeing you soon. All the best.